It's the Sea to Shining Sea edition of Legal AF on Sunday morning, and I'm talking about the 8 different losses in 7 different courts by the Trump administration just this week alone in federal courts with federal judges, chief federal judges, magistrate judges, juries, and a really bad day for Donald Trump at the United States Supreme Court. I'll throw that in as a bonus extra. When preliminary injunctions and permanent injunctions and temporary restraining orders and jury verdicts all come out against the Trump administration the same week of the shellacking he took at election time, the complete rejection of Donald Trump the person, Donald Trump the myth, Donald Trump the president by the electorate on Tuesday night, when you put all that together, we're getting our groove back as a democracy. We're getting our groove back. The federal courts are getting their groove back on how to control Donald Trump. He might have caught us flat-footed in the beginning. His shock and awe full court press with 250 executive orders and changing the relationship almost permanently, at least he thinks so, between the American people and their federal government, including with funding and employees and domestic and tariffs and worldwide and all of that all at the same time. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Crazy. Yes, it's the everything bagel theory, but we've caught up. We've caught up. There are 400 or more lawsuits. The success rate for the attorneys general, 23 of them for blue states, I'll be interviewing them in about 10 days in Arizona. 2 separate panels. You're going to hear from 11 different attorneys general about the more than 60 cases they have in federal courts, and they're winning at a 90% rate against the Trump administration. Hundreds of billions of dollars, including these SNAP anti-hunger payments, are coming out as a result of blue state attorney generals fighting for our democracy, fighting for our rule of law. In addition to that, you've got public interest groups like the ACLU, who are going to have a relationship with Legal AF and with Democracy Forward, who have filed hundreds and hundreds of other cases, and they're winning at a 93% rate. 90% loss rate for Donald Trump at the appeal level. Now, of course, things change with those 10 or 12 cases at the United States Supreme Court where Donald Trump has flipped the script and he's winning at 86% on these emergency dockets. But he had an epically terrible week this past week that I'm looking back on. Everything I'm going to talk about now going forward in this hot take is all this week, this past week. Take a minute, though, and register your support for Legal AF. We've added 20,000 new subscribers this week alone. We're going to get to that 1 million subscriber threshold ceiling. We're going to burst that ceiling, hopefully in the next 4 to 5 weeks with your help. Take a moment, figure out whether you're a subscriber. It's all free. There's no paywall, and hit the subscribe button. Okay. Let me do it. Sea to Shining Sea. Let's go Rhode Island. We're going to go Rhode Island. We're going to do Massachusetts. We're going to do District of Columbia, Eastern District of Virginia. Then we're going to slide over to Chicago and end in Oregon. All this week. And as I've joked with my friends, that if this was a law firm that had Trump and Trump administration as a client, and we had to report 9 straight losses in 1 week, in all different ways to lose, we'd be fired. But that is how Donald Trump has left the Department of Justice in shambles. They're not credible. They're not honest. They have no integrity, and federal judges and juries know it. And that's one of the reasons that's contributing to their losses. That, and they take ridiculous, asinine, bad faith legal positions that aren't based on the facts on the ground. Let's start with Rhode Island. And there's actually 2 cases that came out this week in Rhode Island. One, a permanent injunction, one, a temporary restraining order. And if we can do the counter. We'll do my counter here. I don't have a Porter board to keep track, but let's just do it ourselves. Chief Judge McConnell issued a permanent injunction to stop the Trump administration from denying blue states and blue cities that have sanctuary policies where they're not going to help the feds enforce immigration law, denying them infrastructure and transportation funding, bridges and tunnels and roadways, things that matter, things where people die at a high rate of speed. And Trump tried to tie that to immigration policy, and permanent injunction after trial, permanent block for the Department of Justice. Department of Transportation cannot, says Judge McConnell, tie those two things together and must fund those billions of dollars of projects. He also, Judge McConnell, Chief Judge, issued not one but two temporary restraining orders, so now we're up to 3 orders, against the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Treasury Department and others for stopping SNAP anti-hunger payments. And because of his orders, $5 out of $8 billion has already been paid out to people who are in need, who are hungry, who are disadvantaged in America. The most disadvantaged below the poverty line have gotten 5/8 of what they're entitled to. Now, it's not all of it, and there's still litigation over it. But he was able, in a week's time, to get $5 billion to flow. That's 3. Let's go to Massachusetts. Judge Talwani. She had a companion case brought by the 23 attorneys general, also around SNAP payments, and she made a ruling to force agency action, which contributed to the $5 billion being released. That's 4 decisions against the Trump administration in last week. Let's go to D.C. There was a jury who had to hear, presided over by federal Judge Nichols, a Trump appointee, the case of the salami sandwich toss, the sandwich guy who threw a fully wrapped salami Subway sandwich, apparently with onions and mustard, according to testimony, I'm not making it up, at the chest of a Custom and Border Patrol agent who was fully in gear, wearing a bulletproof vest. I'm sure it could stop the Subway sandwich, and then ran away and was arrested. They tried to charge him, the Department of Justice, with a federal felony of assault on an officer. No grand jury would indict that. So then they tried again with a misdemeanor where they didn't need a grand jury and brought it into a DC jury, and they heard the testimony and said nope. It was also one of my favorite opening statements or closing arguments ever made by the lawyer for Sandwich Guy. She looked at the jury and said, he did it. He threw the sandwich. It's not a federal crime. It's not a federal case. It's not a federal assault or a misdemeanor. And they agreed, especially when it apparently the Border Patrol officer lied. He said the sandwich, quote unquote, exploded on his chest and he could smell the onions and the mustard. Oh, the horror of the smelling of the mustard and the onions. Except there were photos of it lying at his feet, fully wrapped. Okay, DC jury, that's number 5. Eastern District of Virginia. Again, if you're tuning in late or you're joining in progress, these are the losses for the Trump administration's DOJ this past week. We're up to 5 already. 2 orders coming out of the Eastern District of Virginia against Trump. One by Magistrate Judge Fitzpatrick, who ruled for James Comey that every scrap of paper about Comey needs to be provided like yesterday to allow him to prepare his defense. We're going to trial in less than 2 months, folks, in the James Comey prosecution, and also ordered that the grand jury materials be turned over to him. And excoriated the Department of Justice and said that this habit of prosecuting first and investigating second ends today. That's 6. Judge Curry, senior status judge in South Carolina, but ruling on the Letitia James case pending and Comey case pending in Eastern District of Virginia, ordered that all the grand jury transcripts for the Comey and Letitia James indictment that Lindsay Halligan handled within hours of becoming out of the blue a federal prosecutor be turned over to her. That's 7. I'm going to leave tariffs for last, even though I would normally go to DC. Let's go to Chicago with Judge Ellis. Judge Ellis entered a preliminary injunction, having found that the Trump administration used conduct against First Amendment protesters and clergy and members of the press that shock the conscience, where they fired pepper balls and pepper spray at all these people in violation of her temporary restraining order. She also found that Greg Bovino, who ran Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago for the Trump administration, lied under oath. We call that perjury, about having shot his tear gas canister after being hit by a rock. That didn't happen. Video showed it didn't happen. And the lawyers that put on Bovino are in trouble. We call that suborning perjury. You could lose your bar license for it. That's 8. And then let's go to 9. In Oregon, just in the last 48 hours, Judge Immergut, a Trump appointee, issued a permanent injunction after trial finding Donald Trump's takeover of the Portland National Guard and sending in National Guard into the streets of Portland under the facts on the ground did not satisfy the statute that gives him that power, a 10 U.S.C. 12406, no rebellion, no insurrection, no inability with regular forces to execute the laws, and she blocked him permanently. Now, before I end, did that all in 10 minutes. That's 9 with 8 different judges. Let's talk about tariffs for a minute. Terrible day for Donald Trump on Wednesday in the tariff argument, trying to preserve the signature policy of his administration, through which everything else is based. Foreign policy, domestic policy, immigration policy, if you will, a foreign affairs policy, economic policy, monetary, fiscal policy, all on the slender shoulders of an unconstitutional power grab by Donald Trump of Article 1 powers of Congress. Went terribly. Amy Coney Barrett looks like she's fully over with the left and the moderates. So there's 4 votes at least to tear down Donald Trump's tariffs. The question is Gorsuch and Chief Justice Roberts. And based on their questioning, I wouldn't be surprised if both of them sided against the Trump administration. So it could be a 5-4 or 6-3 loss for Donald Trump. They had so many blunders. John Sauer did terribly during the oral argument. Don't listen to the whistling past the graveyard comments by the Trump administration. They did terribly. I'm not throwing that in the column yet because we don't have the ruling. It could be another 3 to 6 months, but it was not a good day for Donald Trump. So we're going to continue to follow it. I wanted to do that summary to kind of give you a high level of a really epically bad week for Donald Trump. I've covered this for a long time. I think the most I ever did was 5 losses in a week. This is 9. And it shows you that the worm has started to turn, that the crowds in the street, the polling and the voting at the polls is starting to have an effect. And that is supporting and giving a backbone to federal judges and to the advocates who are running into court, who are running into this burning building and rescuing our constitutional republic and rule of law. Thank you for being here. You're part of it. You're part of the crowds and the courage. I'm covering the courts, the 3 C's, as Attorney General Rob Bonta told me recently, which I loved. Thanks for being here on Sunday morning on Legal AF. Hit the free subscribe button. We got another 9 videos for you here all day long. Come over to Legal AF Substack, hit the subscribe button there as well, and think about becoming a paid member to fully support what we do here and keep us on the air. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.